What up, everybody? I want to say thank you for listening to this brand new episode of the No Rhyme or Reason podcast. We appreciate every single one of you for tuning in to our show. But there's a small problem. We need you to subscribe on your device, whatever it may be, whether you're checking us out on YouTube, whether you're checking us out on Facebook, no matter where you hear this, subscribe or follow the podcast so you can be alerted as to when we create a new episode for you. We've even added a link down in the description for you where you can just by one click subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Just in case you miss it, you got something going on, you're busy, we ask you to subscribe to the No Rhyme or Reason podcast. Enjoy the show. Yo, you are now tuned in to the No Rhyme or Reason podcast, presented to you by On The Map Music Group, featuring Icarus Gray, and I'm your homeboy WordPlay T.JAY. We deliver to you a dope conversation where we talk about everything for no reason at all. Tune in every Monday to join in on the conversation. And without any further delay, this is the No Rhyme or Reason podcast. And we're live.
Yeah. What's up, people? It's your boy Chris Gray, and there's somebody else on this podcast.
my bad. It's your homeboy WordPlay T.J. I was really vibing to.
and this awkward silence is brought to you by the No Rhyme or Reason podcast, where we talk about everything.
Everything for no reason at all. I'm cutting that out.
Man. Get your shots off on what we talking about today.
So this episode is brought to you by past relationships. And it's not just romantic relationships, it's not just people that you're in a family with or anything like that. It's the whole thing, right? So people that have come into your life and then eventually fell out of your life, and so I want to kind of discuss that because that's been happening a lot lately with me, and I think it's very important currently because I think as we get older, we start to lose people left and right.
Yeah, you start to lose people because your goals no longer align in a lot of different ways. So you might lose what am I trying to say here? Like high school friends because you went to a different college and you guys don't get to speak to each other as much or anything like that, or you lose your single friends when you get into a relationship.
Yeah.
And even more so, like kind of like when you get married, because it's difficult to keep single friends because they still doing single shit.
Yeah. So like for various different reasons, like you sort of, I don't know, grow away from people in a lot of ways. And so, like, that's just it's very interesting to me. So let's unpack that a little bit and maybe talk about. Let's start with just like childhood friends, right? How many on your hand can you really count and say like you still link up with now?
Well, again, because I always kept my circle small, so I got about the same 5 to 7 people, like
Gotcha.
throughout, which like is you, Kendrick, Philip, Myron, Tremel. Shout out, happy birthday, Tremel. When this comes out, it won't be your birthday, but whatever. And I'm trying to think, like, my childhood friends. Well, those are the childhood friend list of like people that have been there throughout. You have been there, the same length as Kendrick, given the fact that we started out in elementary school.
Yeah.
And then, I don't put family in this category because I don't feel like that counts. I mean,
Yeah.
it counts, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like the same people. So it's been about the same five. And you know, you have people that come in like you remember Justin, I guess, you know, like from elementary school. Like it was me, you, and
That
Justin.
name sounds familiar. Yeah.
Like, yeah, so that would have
Yeah.
been like like fell off because that was like the white dude from first grade. Like there are people that like pop up that like seem like you about to have the most amazing relationship with them ever, and then it's just kind of like over once you reach a certain point. Uh, I was really cool with Adam Higgins
Yeah.
for a good amount of time, and
Yeah.
then
Same.
before we got to high school, it was kind of like, yeah, Sean
Yeah.
Wilson was one
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Adam and I kind of saw each other again when University of Arkansas, and he was at the honors dorm, and I was just a little ways away at kind of the the athletic dorm wherever they put people that are kind of miscellaneous scholarship. So,
that is
but
that is funny.
you like his mom is there now in Fayetteville, and he's still there. So we got a chance to kind of chat in the hallways, but we didn't really reconnect like we did then. And I think that may have been just a bit of a situation where
Oh,
we may have grown in different directions, right? So I got exposed to what was going on in the hood, and he didn't get that exposure.
well, that's what I was about to say. Is that's another weird growing up and growing out thing that I wish was different.
Yeah.
That the racial grow up and grow away from
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
your white friends when you're younger may not be your white friends when you're older, which
like
is
my sister
strange.
had a friend, like they were tight, like they took baths and stuff together, like. But
Yeah,
once they got to, I believe, I forget when she said, I believe it was like junior high or something like that. Like they just out of nowhere stopped hanging out. Like I
yeah,
don't know what happened. And it was funny because she came into my job one time and like I didn't know who she was, and I forget how it like all played out to me figuring out who she was or whatever.
yeah,
And it was just funny because it was like, yeah, I'll tell her you said hi, and like you know that it's fake, fraudulent in that sense of like you don't. I mean, you're not gonna like follow up with any of this, and
yeah, yeah,
that's the only grow up and growing away from that makes me sad. All the other ones I kind of understand, but the racial one where it's like you kind of become more culturally yourself. And I can
mm-hmm,
understand hanging around, like I love hanging around my people, you know what I'm saying? But I also like if I meet a friend, like we were cool because we were cool. I was still the same person. Like I didn't change because I know, you know, more ebonics or, you know, like know more about myself. Like I don't
yeah. Is that's the thing? Is the things that were connected us in the first place? Like I never lost interest in those things, and I never pretended to lose interest in those things, and so the friendship could have continued. It just I think at a certain point you're like, well, we haven't seen each other in so long. Now this is kind of awkward, right?
right. And it's like you end up in this place where you're just kind of wondering what that means. And we set that aside to be like soul searching and everything,
Yeah.
like and kind of figuring yourself out, and you lose people in the fray of things. But I always feel like there are certain people that we allow to go um off of the simplest misunderstandings.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of that situation because again, like you said, nothing has changed between the things that we like, and it's often kind of things that ends up making us outcasts in general from our culture because we still love those things.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like one of those situations where you just kind of you know you take it as as life. It's your first real introduction to uh it's not like blatant racism. It's a bit of classism
Yeah.
in
Well,
that way.
well, I wonder. if because I'm not as close to the same people I was back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a handful of people that I talk to, and then there's a handful of people that I don't talk to, but they're from the same time period and they're just as close, right? So there's sort of this thing that happens. I don't know. It's not necessarily. It's not about kind of me changing or you changing or the variance in how we change, right? Because we both have evolved over
Right.
time. The thing that kind of perplexes me is I think it may just boil down to personality type at this
Right.
point, right? So maybe how in in tune you are with emotions and how kind of logic based and sort of binary I am in some cases, right? Because I can turn on how emotional I am when it comes to maybe writing or being creative, right? So I understand, the flow of a pencil on paper, and I understand the flow of of emoting on a song. But when it comes to my relationships, there's a chance that what I'm not necessarily missing, but what I currently have is just a very kind of black and white way of seeing things, right? And so
Right.
I may not be as lenient with my time and my space.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, like responsibilities are the one thing that I say do change how relationships can prosper or how relationships can fizzle out. Because if again, like if I'm waking up and I'm like, man, like I want to be able to do music every day. But right now, I gotta like keep the lights on and prepare to get a house and pay this car note and uh do all these things. It's kind of like you start wagering what you're gonna actually do. So it's like, all right, man, like I want to spend time doing this. But if I do it, then am I sacrificing something? Like I have to sacrifice. Sometimes you have to sacrifice that friendship. Sometimes you have to sacrifice that time with that person. And then there are a lot of times where people don't understand that it's not a forever sacrifice,
Yeah,
or it's not, as
yeah,
you said earlier, it's not emotion based. Like
yeah,
this is the progression to what it is that I have. Like when we were first starting doing this, like our only responsibility was homework and like, not well, at least mine was at the time. It was like homework and stuff like that. You
yeah.
had your own responsibilities and stuff, but at some point we all had the basic responsibilities that were
Well,
not paying
it
back
wasn't
debt.
my cross to bear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though I was doing some things, it still wasn't my cross to bear. So ultimately, like we're currently now in the same boat, and it's different
Yeah.
now, right? So now we have, kind of budding adult lives that we need to figure out, right?
Right.
We have careers that we're interested in. We have people that we care about that we want to take care of, and that's very important when you kind of make these transitions from being a juvenile to being an adult. I think one of my biggest things is that it's not really a situation where I feel as if sacrifices need to be made or heads need to be cut off. I used to think like that, maybe even, 6 months ago. I used to think like that. But now I'm kind of clear in understanding that it's not really a sacrifice that you're making. It's just a change in dumping a lot of negative mindset. And so the thing about relationships, whether it be romantic or not, is that oftentimes people want you to please them in the way that they want. And then if you don't, they'll call you selfish, but it's selfish to ask people to do things for you the way you want them to do them, even though you know this is a different person and they have a different trajectory for their life.
Right. You have a responsibility, as we're talking about these responsibilities, to try and meet somebody in the middle. Is something that I'm learning every day in marriage is, as much as people, there is no 50-50 compromise. And where there is a 50-50 compromise, there aren't that many of them. Like,
I
you have
think
to do
that
it.
I think that may be the issue. Like I had this conversation with Brian Bankhead earlier, and he was like, you know, there ain't no 50-50 compromise, and trying to obtain that is ridiculous. And so I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of the scenario, is that you have to be the whole you for you, and they have to be the whole them for them, and then the goal is to just be on your separate journeys, but do it together
Right.
to help one
Um,
another when that other person needs help on that journey.
what I mean though is, like, what can be the 50-50 stuff is stuff that's like logical and binary. So if you're going into a situation and you say, "Hey,
Like bills,
yeah,
like
that's what I'm saying."
literally fit. Yeah.
That's like financial things can be compromises. How much we save to go on this trip, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The
At that
where
point, that's just a partnership, right?
right,
That's
but
just, you know what I mean?
where it gets, dicey in relationships is, like, a compromise is sometimes 75-25. It's sometimes 80-20. It's saying, like, and if you can't understand that or relinquish that, it's kind of like all of the lockouts in the NBA, the NFL result to one thing. They say, "Hey, we want guaranteed contracts." Well, in order for
Yeah.
them to get guaranteed contracts, then the owners and stuff are like, "Well, you have to give up this. You can only take this much of TV rights and all this other stuff." That it's like, if they want this, they have to give up something. And that's pretty much how you have to weigh these things on a scale. And these scales are never even. You just have to figure out how much of what you need can you get while trying to
Yeah.
meet,
Yeah.
like,
But
what can
yeah.
you give up without feeling like you gave up everything is kind
Yeah.
of
The
part
hard
of what
part, the hard part is distinguishing the difference between giving up pieces of your personality versus giving up kind
Mhm.
of tangible assets,
Yeah.
which is the acceptable one is assets, right? So things that you don't necessarily need to be yourself, right? Because if you're putting all yourself into these things, then you probably have no value of yourself as much as you do those things. I just think when it comes to personality, like asking somebody to be what you want them to be for you is kind of detrimental. It's probably why divorce rates are so high, you
Right.
know?
Well, because divorce rates are normally high because not only do they do that, they also don't have conversations about what their expectations really are. So
Yeah.
a guy who wants no kids all of a sudden marries a chick who wants 12, and that's something that they can't reconcile once they get to a point where it's like, well, I want a family this way and you wanted a family this way, and it's just like, well, technically we just had great sex or great chemistry and there was nothing defined about what we wanted for our future. It's religion based, and like, well, I want to do this and I want to teach the kids this, and it's all of these different things that you don't talk about that causes these problems, because not only are these people getting in these relationships thinking that compromises are 50-50, they're
Hmm.
getting in not realizing what the 10-year plan is. They just thought, well, you make me happy, so I'm going to be happy. It's work. Like, me and Kanae have talked about a lot of these things since we were in high school. Like, it wasn't something that, like, even though we broke up and we were apart for those many years, it wasn't something that we hadn't already established in terms of certain things. And we still have differences, as you know, but the differences are still things that we work on and try to understand and change and evolve. So you end up in this place where a lot of people don't understand anything about the person that they're with. They
Yeah.
just understand that, in this time that we're together, I'm happy. They get so in the moment that it's not like you have to plan out the next 20 years of your life, but you at least need to know whether or not you want kids, whether or not you want to live in apartments for the rest of your life, whether you want to get a house built or find a house, you know, how you want to spend your money. If you get with this person, are you somebody who's gonna, like, are you the I do all of the work and she does none type of husband? Like, are you gonna make her or are you gonna make her a housewife essentially? Like,
Yeah.
are we the partnership? This is all 50-50 type thing in terms of finances, or does she make more money than me? Like, these are all things that a lot of people are not talking about, and therefore it
No.
results in just
No.
horrible results.
Well, it there's 2 points that I want to make. The first point, I'm trying to not to lose track of my thoughts in the midst of it, but the first point is when it comes to us as individuals, I
Mhm.
think oftentimes we put our happiness into other things outside ourselves. So that could be pouring all that there is that you have into a relationship because you feel that that will ultimately make you happy. And when that relationship dissolves, you now have to go retrieve yourself again. When in essence, the if you held tight to who you were the whole entire time, and I think the same thing applies to objects and things and money and cars and clothes and etc. Like a lot of the time our self-worth is wrapped up in everything else outside of us, and that's kind of dangerous. And I think that's one reason that relationships dissolve is because we need those relationships to validate ourselves in some cases. The other part is a relationship, essentially in any form of a relationship, is a new person altogether. I think like you have to treat the relationship like a third person.
And also, I remember a lot of the problems that I had while me and Kane were not together, which both of us actually had, and we talked about recently, was I was looking for everything that she was in other people, like all the time. Like, I didn't have the wherewithal to understand that's what I was doing, is trying to recreate something. So therefore, I'm already shooting myself in the foot in these situations because I'm not even looking at what this is currently, how this is different, what this could be. I'm like, well, I kind of still need this. I kind of want this. Like, there was a couple things that I was trying to learn and teach myself, but I still didn't realize those things until she got back. And even then, like, it just pushed me to actually examine them. But I was given the uh safety net of comfortability with with her, because I hate new relationship stuff. I hate it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
hate that more than anything.
kind of that's the hard part. So why is building a romantic relationship different than building a friendship? Right? Because building a friendship
Whew.
seems really easy.
God, it's easy. Like, if you got a friend
So why
and,
is a relationship not as easy? Because it should be that easy.
well, I think it's the weight that we put on it. So, in a lot of
Mm.
situations, it is better and is the best most times for you to be friends before anything. And me and Kane were that. We were friends. Now, granted, my intention was always to be with her, but
You was trying to bone, dog.
no, um, no, like when the parts of me that were, young and pubescent and wanted all of that quickly went away when I realized who she was as a woman. And then after that, I was like, dog, I want everything. Like, I don't want, and this is something that I was gonna say. Like, my mindset has always been in terms of relationships of that sort. I've always thought about growing old with somebody. Like, I wanted that when I was in elementary school. I don't know why. I don't know if it was because of every damn Disney movie or relationship romantic comedy that I happen to see, but it's always what I wanted, because there was something about like watching movies like The Sandlot or something like that, where you would see at the end, so and so grew up to go and do this and blah blah blah. So I had an understanding of kind of these moments in your life, and I thought, well, that would be cool to share with somebody. We go and we do this together, we explore and we do this, we do that, we
Yeah.
do that.
Well, our idea of life is usually shaped by media, right?
Yeah,
Like every perception that we have is shaped by media. That's, kind of why people kind of form their ideas about anything, really.
right. But the bigger thing in terms of like people why they don't value these friendships and why it's easier is because like it wasn't until you are dating somebody that they feel a need to share certain things with you sometimes. So like we were friends.
I don't
And then
know. Like I know more about the people that I'm friends with than I do in some of my relationships.
well, I was just about to get to that, because we started out as friends. Then somewhere along the line, it was deeper for me and us becoming brothers. And so that's when, because we see things, and that's when we're having conversations about different things. That's when we've gone through different things together. And then, you and I still learn stuff about one another every day, essentially, when we had these conversations like, yo, I never knew this, that, and the third, like,
Yeah, but they don't like that's the problem, is that you would think that you would have these same conversations and they would be just as easy with somebody that you fall in love with. Who the hell is that?
like, who is that honking?
Yo, chill
life.
out. Chill out. Ain't it really ain't that serious. Call them. We have cell phones.
But the difference is like instinctively there's so much more to
I think is it the biological part? Because that's the only thing that's really different.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, because that changes so much. Because like, here's the thing: sex is like the biggest deterrent and the biggest wrong reason to get into a relationship. So think about people who choose not to have sex. The thing that they always tell them is, well, like who you marry, like you might want to marry somebody with experience, or y'all
that causes problems too.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I say it can be a deterrent, or it can be like the reason you're together is this great sex and you have nothing else, because it's so animalistic that is so difficult to separate and go back to being friends. Because me at my most intimate, like as close as we are, like you'll never know me that way.
True.
Like
true.
And, like,
I'm glad you put that emphasis on.
Like we can have, and dudes do have conversations.
I will never be gay with you.
Hold on, man. Oh, that was a hiccup. But
oh my gosh.
But no, it'll never happen.
Oh man.
But like, funny enough, as you
I'm glad that I needed to be gay rejected.
Wow.
Just
wow.
Because, well, I'm just saying, like, it's not that I ever wanted that to happen, but it's just perfect that now I know.
Like
You know what I mean?
it's just we're not there. We're not
We
there.
already knew, but now we know.
But here's the funny flip about that. Like that is literally the only thing that most dudes will not
Oh, my face.
understand. Because other than that, we'll talk about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some odd gay experience that you had. We'll talk about man, it was this one time I was doing so and so, and bruh,
Yeah.
I spent a day masturbating and I got seven times.
Yeah.
And I was watching this. And it's like, hey, bro, have you ever done the upside down with your leg up sideways thing? Like, we'll do all of that.
It's
But like,
funny.
no.
It's funny. I was on the phone with Brian earlier, and I was like, man, both of the TVs are gone. I was like, I was kind of looking forward to masturbating in HD. Oh man.
What's funny about that is that's actually a thing.
What's this? I was like,
That's
fuck,
a thing, man.
it's a smart TV. Like,
But you know, it's like all this stuff, but it's so different because you have this moment where it's just like that's anybody's most vulnerable. That's
yeah,
anybody's most open. It doesn't matter whether you're homosexual or heterosexual. That is your most open. That is your most honest. That is your most true self is when you're doing something like that. Because like you can either be great or you can be bad.
well, yeah, that's our you could say in a very staunch and kind of I don't know, binary type way that this is what we're here for, right? To bring the next generation here,
Right.
or to make new humans so they can expand on what we did. And with that being the ultimate kind of goal is to give rise to the next group, then yes, this is going to be the one thing that hedges on the difference between a friendship and a friendship that turns into a romantic relationship.
Right. And so the evolution of like to get back to like because we are talking about evolutions, not so much like we're not like trying to help y'all understand how to get your relationships better.
No, yeah,
But
I
the
don't.
evolution of that, like I remember like from then, like the biggest evolution that I had was not trying to have sex. Like and like fighting with those desires within myself with Kanae in our first stint in our relationship.
Yeah.
And it was like having to ground myself in a respect format and understand that like while I'm going crazy and I think that's the pinnacle for me, there are other aspects that are the pinnacle for other people because there are people who like that's not the end all be all for them. Like you said, they understand that the same thing that we have in this friendship is the same thing we should have in a relationship. And
It's funny. I want to interject before you'll know what this is, but the listeners won't know. Before my TT phase, I was abstinent, and that was a whole point, kind of time that I was, I guess, developing some of the music that I was coming up with, and kind of built my stage show and all these other things, and it was sort of the point in my life where I really understood like clear focus and how to get it. And things just kind of started, this awareness changed in me, right? I was kind of aware of how I was evolving in real time, where before then I never knew what was going on. I don't think not having sex was a part of that, But I do believe that kind of added to the clarity, because there was one thing that I can kind of ditch and that I wasn't really looking for.
Well, I'm a huge proponent in the fact that it makes us dumb as hell. Like us as dudes. Like it just like
Like dumb in the sense that I'm now thinking with my hormones sometimes.
our hormones, like here's how I knew whether or not I cared about somebody, right? Back
Yeah.
before I got married. If after we got done with the business, I could be here with you and not think about like, well, how can I get you the hell up out of here? We're good because my
Yeah.
brain has been emptied, the desire has been met, and I'm straight. Like we've done what we need to do, go away. If after that I'm like, well, how you doing? How's your day going? Like
Yeah,
there's something
yeah,
here.
yeah. There's a line between. Yeah, sometimes you can. I'm just the type of person where I know no matter what, after I after I bust, like I just don't want to do much of anything. I may want to grab a sandwich, like I may want to like get up and maybe inspired to do something else, but like watch TV or have a conversation is probably the max about what I'm gonna do.
Right. And so like what's funny about this stuff is like I was trying to say, the evolution that I went through was, like I said, learning what I wanted to, or how to navigate that, and then just how to kind of like go forward. So it's like, all right, so now you're in a position where you're not going to do this. Like you have to temper yourself. You got to find a way to control yourself. You have to find a way to find satisfaction in different desires, whatever, so on and so forth. And it was the most excruciatingly painful thing to do at that time because I'm a teenager. Like testosterone is at its max.
Okay, so yeah,
Like,
that
or
was
not.
way young. Okay, so
And then
my
like,
situation was way older, and I
well,
had
then
already been,
no, I'm
been
getting there.
I
So
had already been after that that phase.
but then like, so I mean, because I was a late bloomer in that sense. Like I didn't lose my virginity until I was in my 20s. Um, like, which is crazy for me given the opportunities that were presented before me. But like
Well,
I told you,
knowing where we're from, like I was
yeah.
also kind of late, still a teenager, but still late.
But given where I thought about it, like I needed something that meant something. Like I hated the fact that I lost it the way I did. Like I do, and the evolution of getting to a point to where I was able to reconcile that. Like that was an issue that I deal with when Kane first got back, is because by this point we both were not. And so now I'm dealing with the thoughts that I have about that and feeling like, what we built, the foundation that we had of feeling like we were going to be able to not do this until it was just us.
Yeah,
Like, because I did it, I lost mine to get over her. To like
yeah,
no longer have this thing hanging over my head that felt like, well, I was gonna wait for you, and now I don't want to do that anymore. So when she got back, I had this evolution of
but I mean,
understanding.
I wonder, are you both glad now that you had at least some experience coming into it, right? It's not like a double blind study.
I mean, honestly, with how we would have been cool with a double blind study, and that doesn't work for everybody. But I know we would have been straight.
Well, I guess it's kind of better if you have a double blind, right? So, but
If it,
what
but
if it were you
you have to
didn't
have it.
and she did, or vice versa, right?
Well, that would have been more painful on either end for her and or for me.
Gotcha.
Just because of our general relationship with one another. But like the double blind study is one of the biggest detested things in the world. And I do understand that it's a catch 22 because you have to have the actual desire to learn stuff. Like, it's gonna be an uphill climb. You're gonna have to learn a lot. Like, and maybe you won't, you just kind of have to experiment. And if you don't know where to experiment, how to experiment, and what to experiment with, that presents a problem for some people. But no, I would have been cool with the double blind study for us. Like, I dealt with a lot of like resentments and angers because like that's kind of something that we were both subconsciously doing towards one another. Like, it wasn't like we really wanted to do, like, we wanted to do what we were doing, but we didn't want to do what we were doing. Like, it's just one of those things where it's just like, well, everybody says this, and so it might as well be this. And like I said, my decisions were solely based on trying to sever the fact that I felt like I wasted my time at that point, and that was the immature aspect of my mind.
I think I lost my virginity due to impatience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just now that I think about it, that may have been a huge mistake. Like, I don't really think about regrets, but it definitely involved more than just me and one girl, right? So I was already in a relationship, and I went out to lose my virginity.
Right. And so like it's crazy, um because you have these evolutions where you're trying to like, that's kind of how they defined us as men. Like, our goal is the race to who can be the quickest to lose it. Like, that's
Yeah,
the
there was
thing.
a
Like,
social part to it,
right.
that wanted to be able to say I had it, but more so it was more so hormones than anything.
Right. And that too. Like, it wasn't, and there was nobody really pushing, like, we were not pushing each other towards this
No,
thing. That, you know, it was other friends and, you know,
right,
uncles and
and
stuff like that.
none of my close circle was encouraging me to do anything.
Right. So we didn't have that kind of peer pressure, but there was the peer pressure of just feeling like, my hormones are going crazy. Like, I got to do something with this. Um, but that's another kind of thing of like growing. Like, when you get to the point to where you are interested in somebody, it makes everything better. Because if you can actually be interested in one another, like, it's always gonna make that aspect of things feel better at what it is.
What about, okay, so for the last maybe 20 minutes or so, what about, I want to kind of dissect relationships that are outside of friendships, outside of romantic ones,
Mm-hmm.
but have to do with kind of work relationships.
Oh my God, those are the weirdest.
Building relationships with people over the long term that have to do with business, because that's a very difficult thing to do. And I say it's difficult because in order to like our culture, our our culture is one within the capitalist system, right? So usually you're always trying to get to the next level. And in order to do that, you have to now create a new circle every time you go up the spiral, right? You have to, maybe there'll be some people that you still mess with since day one, right? So shout out Amanda, Triple HQ, right?
You.
Some people stand the test of time, right? There's DJs that I know from still like several years ago. There's still people that I deal with radio, and still relationships that I have since day one. But there's some relationships that fall off simply because you can't keep in contact with every one of these people on a day-to-day basis. And that's one thing I have about relationships in general, is that because me personally, because my career is growing, and my career is growing sort of exponentially over time, it's really hard for me to maintain relationships with anybody when there's so many people that I have the option to give my time to.
That is personality matching too, because you got to think about like, and this is in the capitalistic industry, you got to match like what kind of boss you are versus what kind of workers you got. Me and you want to
Yeah.
take a hammer to the general settings of all this stuff anyway, because it's not conducive to great work, at least not in
Yeah.
every
And
situation.
that's what I was thinking is, you know, I'm not the conventional capitalist. So there is a
Right.
moment where I feel like, okay, that's enough. I think we're good enough here and we're probably still going to grow even though this is where I want to stop.
Right. But that's the personality matching. So you end up, the work relationships are always either different or awkward. Like, well, awkward, the best, or just like sufficient.
Yeah,
So,
I just don't like the hard part is that most of these relationships is a tit for tat sort of thing, right?
right.
You can start to know people, right? So
Hmm.
Amanda, we know she's into anime. Like we know that like we know her daughter is into doing soccer right now and we
Right.
know like what she is interested in as far as Triple HQ, right? She
Right.
talks about these things with people that she allows into her circle. But the difficult part is understanding that at some point we're probably going to ask a favor of her or she will probably ask a favor of us or other way around. But like there's a lot of these relationships that don't get a chance to blossom simply because they are favor based.
Well, given that, but then at that point, because of how we are and how we have the relationships, it's not a favor. It's
Yeah, it's not. It's never looked
it's
at as that. Correct.
it's it's elevation of, I respect you, you respect me. Like, favors are what get a lot of these other people in trouble, because
Mm,
favors are the cousin of gifts.
yeah.
And a lot of people had this mindset. So if I let you, or not even so the cousin of gift, the favor, or the cousin of borrowing. So when somebody's like, let me borrow $20, if you don't have a mindset that I'm gifting you this, you're gonna be upset no matter what. Well, unless they give you the money back directly when they say they are, but
Hmm.
sometimes that's not the case.
Yeah,
So then
so
it's
so
like,
sometimes you'll loan people money
mhm,
and the person that's loaning the money should come in with the mindset that this is a gift even if they don't return it. Is that
right,
what you're saying?
because yeah, because it removes the burden of you like pressing somebody. Like, I saw this video that I thought was freaking hilarious, but also real hood and messed up. So this dude was apparently in the mall buying like some shoes or something. This guy walks in and getting recorded or whatever, and it's like, dog, you owe me money and you out here buying shoes? Like, nah, bro, you taking these shoes back. Like, and literally makes him take the shoes back. And at first I was like, this is weird. The only reason he did it is because they're cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I was like, this is some mad crazy
Yeah.
stuff, because you're not
Yeah.
gonna make
And
me
you
take this
also don't
back.
know their agreement, right? Like what they
Yeah,
talked about.
or whatever. And it was like, that's the same thing that you come across in these types of relationships that we're talking about. Like, there's nothing that Amanda could ask me to do that I wouldn't like, unless it's just like, extortion or something like that crazy, but that we wouldn't try to do for her if we could, because that's just the respect level that I have for what she does for independent artists, and for the music industry in general.
Yeah.
And she just good people's. Now, can I say that about my boss? No, not really.
Yeah.
Like, you call and I'm probably not answering on the weekends, something like eh,
I hope she hears
we'll,
this one day.
we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it on Monday. Like,
Yeah.
but that's just because her business practices aren't something that I am cool with all the time. Like I
Yeah.
respect it because you're a boss. You got to do what you got to do. But at the same time, it's not as progressive as the
Well, she's a
things.
manager.
Yeah, well, we'll do that. But it's not as progressive as the things that we're trying to do. And
Yeah.
that's like sometimes the employee versus manager versus boss dynamic is you're trying to grasp these things that I need things out of life. And this is why me and you set up the model or trying to set up the model of how we work, because you don't have to be my best friend in this working relationship, but I do need to not be stressing.
Yeah.
Like coming into these situations when you working like 5 or 6 jobs, like no one cares about the next man. And I get it. It's not my job to care about the fact that you got 4 kids. It's not my job to care about the fact that, you gotta get your rent paid and keep gas in your car. It's not my fault if you live, 3 hours outside of where you work or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, why not? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why do I not want my workplace to work better? Why do I not want to make it easier for somebody to work at their best selves? It's not going to
Yeah.
always work out because you can give somebody all of that and they still not do what they need to do, but that's what firing is for.
Yeah. I think my biggest concern is that the sheer volume of
Mm.
people that you have to maintain relationships with is so overwhelming that it makes me not want to form new networks. But knowing
Oh,
the nature of who I am and what my business is, like I'm always going to meet new people. But the problem is that a lot of the people that I formed old relationships with, I'll probably lose touch with, right? I probably won't
right.
talk to as often. And sometimes that makes people feel some type of way. And that's the issue that I have. Is like, yo, why are so many of us taking this thing personally? It's like when somebody says you never call, but they don't call you ever, right?
Right.
It's like, well, what are you complaining about? It's not like you call me all the time and then you expect me to give you a call back.
Like it's the weirdest thing ever. Like but you have to have that understanding. And like you also have to communicate that sometimes to some people. Like I say all the time, like it's people I don't get to talk to every day now, but I call them, when I can. And I'm like, yo, I just letting you know, well, not we still good, but like, what's up? And I just act normal because this
Yeah.
is normal. Like it's
Well,
my first time being able to call you. Like the only people I talk to consistently on a day-to-day basis is you and Philip and
yeah.
my wife. Obviously, like everybody else, we fit in where we fit in.
Well,
Me and
I
Kendrick,
don't think you talk to Kane. I think you just go home and drink club soda.
club soda. Like if you had said tequila sunrise, you might have had me. But club soda
But
is a
no,
farce.
for real. Like, okay, so my biggest thing is that I personally right now literally have so many people in my phone that there's no possible way for me to realistically connect with everybody. And so now I have to, my filter game has to be so strong that I can only like every once in a while, I have to pick and choose who I phone call, which is crazy
Oh
to me.
man,
I never
it,
thought that I'd be in this place, but it's starting to like everything around me is starting to change.
yeah, I've been there, I guess, because it's like it's people that I'll call and we'll talk for like most people I call. If I call you, we've been on the phone
Maybe a
for
couple 3 hours,
two
maybe
two to three
max.
hours.
Yeah.
Like, and me and Philip do the same thing. Like, I'll call my cousin, we'll be on the phone for about 2 hours. I'll call my homeboy DK. Shout out DK. Shout out the Peach Cobbler and Champagne podcast that he working on. I told him he need to come on. But anyway, uh,
Oh yeah,
like
definitely.
I call so many different people, and it's like when we call, we finna talk. Like, cause that's me. Cause I'm like, we're gonna talk about everything. Like, I'm gonna either we're gonna reminisce a little bit. We're gonna talk about some new stuff, kind of see what's going on with you. A lot of people I call now, like be like, how's married life? And then, I gotta talk
Yeah.
about that and stuff. Like even today, I made sure I called my homie for his birthday. And
Right.
like when I called him, he was out, and we joking about some stuff, and then I get hit with the, when y'all having kids question, and I'm like, after we've had some time to be married, like stop it,
Yeah.
like shut up, like I don't care.
Quit that. Get that.
Stop, quit it, get away. Um, but that's just how I am, and a lot of people, I don't know if they have that within them, because it's a hard
Yeah.
balance, man. Like you can't, like you literally, when you're in high school, when you're in college, all you're doing is spending time around people. Like whether
Yeah.
you're studying or not, like now you can make the choice. Like there are a lot of people who make choice to, to isolate themselves, study and do whatever. But the whole experience is about the interactions. When you get outside of those interactions and you got 9 to 5 and so on and so forth, then you have to put up a balance. Now
Right.
you
That's
balance your,
that's why the C students do so well in business, right? Because
yeah,
they're networking, and
yeah,
they've been networking since day one.
right.
My biggest concern is I just believe that some people, and this would only kind of maybe apply to insecure people, but some people feel like I should be calling more in some cases, right?
Well, if that's not who you are, that's not who you are, and that's a hard thing
Oh,
for
that
people to
definitely
kind of
isn't who I.
reconcile.
That
You know what I'm
definitely
saying?
isn't who
Like,
I am. Like I am just not a outside of my core folks. Like it's really hard for me to have a long form conversation with anyone because they have to have certain traits, right? You know?
right, and that's like at this point, and there's only so much new that us old folks are able to take. Once you get past a certain point, it's like, look, man, there's only so much. Like, if I met somebody right now that loved anime,
Yeah.
I'm probably in there. Like, we got a lot to talk about. We have years of things that we can talk about. If I'm gonna meet somebody that's like heavy on sports in a certain way, we got something we can talk about. If I meet somebody that's like a Def Leppard fan,
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do with you there.
Yeah.
Like I don't
But
know.
it's
Like
it's it's also kind of that for me personally is that I have sort of like an autistic drive when it comes to networking.
this is true.
You know what I mean? Where it's just like, oh, we networked, that was the end, right? That was the end. And I feel satisfied because I've networked with you. Basically, what I'm saying to you is that I feel great that I've created something that didn't exist with you before. But some people want a little bit more than that. And when they don't voice those opinions or they don't try to connect a little bit more with
Mhm.
me, you know what I mean? Sometimes I'm blamed for that. And that's kind of a weird situation for me.
But that's people again not understanding who you are, and that's people starting the relationship off as selfish. Because here's the thing that's in every one of these relationships that we talked about, and can kind of bow this up. You have to know who somebody is. You have to be unselfish enough to seek that. Because if I meet you at a trivia challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my presumption is you're just all about trivia because of this one thing that we have in common. I'm shooting myself in the foot because I don't know who you are. Like we found a common ground, but I don't know what your hobbies are. I don't know what you're watching on TV. I don't know if you thought OJ did it. Like I don't know any of these things.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the wherewithal to actually want to learn these things, it's dead in the water because
Yeah.
eventually something is gonna come up or come out that you didn't know. Like I guarantee you, it's mad people who were great friends with Jared from Subway or Louis C.K. Right,
Yeah.
and in your head, like he might have made jokes about the stuff that he was doing, like
Yeah.
And you would think, oh man,
he
he
made
just
very
being,
public jokes about the stuff
you
that he was
know,
doing.
and then it's
It
like,
was
oh
in
man, specials.
his sitcom.
Yeah, and then so you sit there and you're like, oh man, whatever. And then it's like, whoa, wait, you were really doing that? Like, and there were signs, like you said, there's signs everywhere. It's just whether or not you actually take those things seriously and just put on your own presumptions. Like, yeah, I can't predict everything that you would do, but I have an inkling
Yeah.
of like the range. Same with you and me. Like, it's the reason why, like, there are a lot of people who say this and be lying. Like, when I'm you know me, man, you know this isn't me. And it's like, well,
Yeah,
like I
sometimes we
kind of
don't.
knew. Like
And
sometimes we don't, sometimes we
but
do.
I think a lot of times, to sum up, is that in any sort of relationship, sometimes we assume that the person, on either side is going to fulfill whatever needs we have for that we want them to feel.
Right.
And that's just not necessarily true. And sometimes we assume that they're going to go above and beyond for us. Sometimes we assume that they're going to reach out with an olive branch when we need it. Sometimes we assume that that person is gonna call more often. Sometimes we assume that that person's gonna be there when we need them. And the reality is that every individual has their own path. And sometimes if you want somebody to reach out to you, or if you want somebody to be a better friend in a relationship, sometimes you got to reach out to them and say, hey, this is what I'm asking of you. Can you do
Yeah.
this for me?
And then you also have to have the strength to say, if they can't, well, let me move
That's
on,
okay too.
or that's okay too, or I'm gonna move on.
Yeah.
Like, because if that's something that you need and it's not met and you can't have it, like you have to have,
Yeah.
like, no matter how long you've known somebody. That was a lot of conversations that you and I had to had when we first started working back together. Like,
Yeah.
I had to let you know that I wanted to work a certain way to earn the things that were being given to me. Now, you
Yeah.
were who you are, and you're just like, look, man, like, I know that you're this, like, and I know that you can do this. I know your talent level. Like, that's why I'm doing this. Not like you have to grovel in front of me, like I'm, whatever. Um, you just kind of just know what's up. Like, have these conversations.
Yeah.
Know what your evolution is, know what's going on. And the reason why we wanted to even have this conversation is just because a lot of changes have gone on, you know, off air about relationships and stuff that we had, especially over the past 2 years. You can listen to every episode of the pod. Well, you can listen to the podcast
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
go check us out on YouTube, and you'll
And
see,
see
you'll
some
see, you'll see.
evolution.
Yeah, like, and it's, it's not bad blood anywhere. But it's just one of those things that you kind of just gotta see. And so having this conversation just shows, like, as we're 30, these are the conversations that we have. Like, how have we grown? How have we changed? How have the relationships around us formed and dissipated and so on and so forth? And is that good, bad, or whatever? And it's just, another one of those no rhyme or reason conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, knowledge is for understanding and not to prove others wrong. This has been the No Rhyme or Reason podcast with your boy Icarus Gray.
And your homeboy Wordplay T.J.
And we'll be back week after week after week, never missing a beat.
Peace.
Peace. No Rhyme or Reason is an On the Map music group production.